Okay, it is 11 o'clock, and I want to make sure that we get through everything we have for you today, as well as some time for any questions that folks may have. So I am going to get started. This is being recorded, so if you do need to refer back to it, you'll have access to the recording. Our slides will also be available, but you're more than welcome to take any screenshots that you may need. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our session on Beyond Compliance, designing online courses that spark engagement and connection. My name is Sue Yang. I'm the instructional designer here on campus, and I'll let my colleague introduce herself as well.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Sally Potter, and I am the interim distance education coordinator. Just stepped into this role at the beginning of February, and I'm real excited to have this conversation with you. We've got a great turnout today. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
There's quite a bit of information that we would like to cover with you today, and so we do want to give you an opportunity to also share and talk amongst each other. And so today's primary goal is to provide you information around regular substantive interaction and its importance for student engagement and learning. We'll be utilizing the RSI policy that was approved by Academic Senate to help us with this. We'll also provide some strategies that are instructor initiated to help you move closer to RSI. And lastly, we'll have you join breakout rooms to brainstorm and share your tips for communication with students.
Just a couple of housekeeping items. We have a large group here today, so when you have questions, when questions come up, go ahead and type them in the chat. Sue or I will be monitoring that and try to answer as many questions as we can in the chat. Feel free to engage there. If there is something that we don't get to in within the chat, we will stop periodically and address some of those questions. And then we also hope to have some time at the end for some more open-ended questions and kind of talking with everyone. And then the other thing is, please, within Zoom, make sure that your first and last name appears. So if you have, if only your first name is showing up or some other, variation of that, go ahead and edit that. You hover over your name in the participants pane, and then these little three dots will pop up. Then you can select rename, and then from the drop down menu, and then just type in your first and your last name. So that way we have a record of who is here, and for any part-time faculty, we can get the timesheets out.
I also placed the RSI policy in the chat for you to download and save as a reference as well too. So before we get started, I have a little activity for us to do. I'm going to paste a Padlet link into the chat here, and click on that link in the chat and it'll take you to the Padlet. And there are two columns, what I know and what I want to know. And so under each column, we have a plus icon. So you can click on that plus, and just it'll add a sticky note to that column. And so I'll give you a few minutes to just write your responses. So what I know and what I want to know. And we'll wait a few minutes here as again, click on the link in the chat. It'll take you to the Padlet you're seeing on the screen, and there are two columns. what I know and what I want to know about RSI. So under each column, there's a plus. You can click on that and it'll give you a sticky note that you can add. Okay. So what I know about RSI, it's contact between the student and instructor, keeps the class from being simply a correspondence. Wanting to make sure if we're compliant, communication and student engagement are critical. Regular interaction with online students. I know I meet some of the requirements with weekly announcements and comments. Not much, but I'm here to learn. Great. I think that's a lot of folks' questions is, am I doing enough? What else do I need to do? What does the college expect? This is a great question. Are there differences between fully online and hybrid courses in regards to the RSI policy? How much feedback per student? Well, these are great. Yeah. We'll definitely take some of these comments and hopefully create like a maybe FAQ or some shareable resource in regards to some of the questions or some of the comments that you have about what you want to know more. But yes, please continue to create your notes under each of those columns to help us as well too.
Yeah,
All right.
some great comments here. I really like Elizabeth's, how can I keep RSI from becoming overwhelming? That is a great comment. And I think we're gonna get to it today. Yeah.
Okay, so before we do get into how RSI is defined, I want to, I want you to know that most of us, as the comments had also mentioned, most of us are already implementing some element of RSI in our courses, and we may not realize it. And for some, it'll be simply adding more substance or making sure we're consistent in our interactions, or allowing, are we allowing students to use our feedback to show growth in their learning? It'll be more of looking at ways that we can increase RSI or vary our interaction.
So why do we have to do RSI? Why should we do RSI? Of course, it's good for the students. Instructor interaction and fostering a sense of belonging are an essential component of online learning. We know that. There's also some research that shows that there are better outcomes. Students do better in courses that have more or adequate RSI. And then, this is especially true for some of our most impacted groups. A lot of students who are unable to come to campus, they're taking our online classes. Those are the ones that are most in need of, a warm environment, collaborative community in our classroom. So it benefits them most, benefits everyone. And then also keep in mind that, it is the law. These are regulations that we have to follow for accreditation, for Title V, in order to, well, Sue's going to go into this, but, for federal law as well. So those are all things to think about.
Okay, and as I previously mentioned, an RSI policy was approved in 2023, and I shared that document in the chat, but Sally, if you could reshare it as well for anyone who may have missed it, please save and refer to this because it has all the information that we'll need regarding RSI. And the folks who created this provided all the references and citations and additional resources. And so you can refer to as many resources as you'd like. Today, I'll break it up a bit and point out some key areas to help us as we're looking at RSI. So RSI is not something new that was added to regulations or anything. The definition of distance education has always stated that it must support regular and substantive interaction between the students and the instructor, synchronously or asynchronously. But the meaning of the term regular and substantive interaction was just not clearly defined. And so in July 2021, the definitions were updated, and it was an important update because RSI really distinguishes distance education from correspondence courses. And so with the presence of RSI is what makes a course a DE course. And as Sally had mentioned, this has important implications for our federal and state funding and financial aid eligibility. And so referring to page 1 of the RSI handout, here at FCC, we are not accredited to offer correspondence courses. We just don't receive funding for them. And so we want to ensure that our DE courses have at RSI. This infographic, which is also on page 3 of the handout, it shows correspondence education on one side, and then these courses tend to be more self-paced. There's no regular interaction. The interaction is primarily initiated by the student. The student simply goes through the course activity by activity in a very passive manner, whereas distance education courses includes more instructor-initiated interaction and also opportunities for providing student feedback. The learning is more guided. Students receive that personalized feedback, and the instructor is present and engaged in the course.
I'll just jump in real quick here to mention that when you look on the left side where it has the elements of a correspondence course, auto-graded quizzes, video lectures, weekly assignments with due dates, graded assignments without feedback, that does not mean that you can't do those things in your class. Of course, you can post videos of yourself lecturing on content. You can have auto-graded quizzes. That's a very important part of any course. Weekly announcements. Yeah. All of that. Those are things that you likely are doing, you should be doing. You're encouraged to do that. What this is really talking about is that a correspondence course is only going to have those elements. So what we need to do to make sure that our courses are true distance education courses is that we do have some of the activities that are over on the right-hand side, the discussions, the office hours, the video lectures that include discussion, those more interactive things. But it doesn't mean that every single activity that you do in your course has to be all the way over on the right-hand side.
So as I mentioned, the updates included additional information for substantive interaction and regular interactions. And so for substantive interaction, this means engaging students in teaching, learning, and assessment consistent with the content under discussion. And it includes at least 2 of the following activities: providing direct instruction, assessing or providing feedback on a student's coursework, providing information or responding to questions about the content of a course, facilitating a group discussion regarding the content of a course, other instructional activities approved by the institutions or programs accrediting agency. And so again, these are activities that most of us are likely already incorporating into our online courses. But now it's just clearly defined in regulations for us. The new definition for regular interaction between a student and instructor is ensured by, prior to the student's completion of a course, providing the opportunity for substantive interactions with the student on a predictable and scheduled basis, commensurate with the length of time and the amount of content in the course, monitoring the student's academic engagement and success, and ensuring that an instructor is responsible for promptly and proactively engaging in substantive interaction with the student when needed on the basis of such monitoring or upon request by the student. And so again, those are the new clarified guidelines that we use for RSI. In the handout on page 2, there is additional information that'll help us as we look at our RSI. In the second bullet, there's some guidance here for us for an 18-week course, a 3-unit course. The minimum required weekly interaction frequency is twice a week with 2 substantive interactions, the activities that were mentioned in the definition. There's also additional guidance for hybrid or other accommodations that are described in your course outline of record or your DE addendum. If you're unsure, you can always check with your department chair or check on CurriculumNet for your course. And as I mentioned, many of us are already implementing some RSI in our courses. And so these definitions, they're still broad enough to include a range of activities that give us options for choosing how and when, these interactions occur in our course. So a quick check here, and you can write your responses in the chat there. Let's say I have a recorded lecture video that I, have students watch. Would that be considered RSI? So I'll give you a minute or so here to respond in the chat. What do you think? Yes or no? Would that be considered RSI? I hope so, or yes, no. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of no. Yeah, we'll get to the office hour one. Yep. All right. Yes, you are right. This is instructor created, yes. If it's your recorded lecture, yes. So this was also a question that was brought up while they were going through these regulations and definition changes. A lot of institutions and colleges wanted clarification on this. Now, based on the response that they received, the recorded lectures alone on their own are not considered RSI. But if the recorded lectures are included in an assignment, let's say that students have to watch and then respond to have to engage with that content with you, that moves it closer to meeting RSI. And so again, the recorded lecture where students just watch it, there's really no context or any other interaction with it, that would not be considered RSI. But if there's follow-up to that, so again, if there's engagement, students have to watch it, use it to complete an assignment where you interact with them, that would move it closer to RSI. So the second one here, and as Sally had mentioned, this doesn't mean that you can't use, videos in your course or that all your videos have to have some sort of embedded questions in them. Remember, there are other ways for you to consider or show RSI in your course. Now, the next one, how about office hours? So I have my scheduled office hours for students to meet me on Zoom. Would that be considered RSI? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of yes. If synchronous. All right, great, yeah. So this was also another question that was asked for clarification. And in the response, it was clarified that it does fulfill RSI requirements. The activity is instructor initiated. It is at a specific scheduled time and through a specific modality, online Zoom. And it allows the opportunity for students to interact about the course material. So again, your office hours would be considered RSI.
Just to pause here because there are a couple of great questions in the chat. Susan's asking to give an example of a follow-up to a video. So I believe you mentioned questions about the video. You could even use Studio to embed questions in a video. What are there any other examples of follow-up that we have on videos?
Actually, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I actually make students like do a specific type of work and then interact with each other. So they do have to do work that I review directly, but then they have to interact with each other. So I'm assuming that still checks the box.
Want to get that one, Sue?
So you have students do an activity and then watch the video, is that correct?
No, they actually watch the video, then they have an assignment of, I would call them code alongs often, or code challenges that they do. And then they reply back to the discussion. I grade those things as far as their code, and then they interact with other students in the discussion. So I do grade their work and give them feedback on their code challenges.
Yeah, and I'm I'm not, just a disclaimer, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to be like, yes, this checks it, or yes,
Yeah,
this
it's okay. It's okay. I was just curious.
Yeah,
I thought that was my example. So yeah, all
no,
good.
that's a great example as well too. A lot of these, and this is why there's that sort of last category or list of activities, because for specific programs or specific departments, their RSI is going to look a little bit different than another department's. And so as a department, if you want to come up with like, these are areas where we could definitely demonstrate RSI, which may look a little bit different than what is recommended or what is suggested generally. And if it falls under the the requirements of regulations, as well as, and I'll show you our accrediting rubric that they use when they're looking for RSI in our classes. And so that could also help to sort of decide as a department what it is that we want RSI to look like for our courses.
And then
Thanks, Sue.
a couple things about office hours. So what if students don't show up to your office hours? That's okay. You are still allowing them the opportunity to have an interaction with you. If it's an online course, yes, it should be an online office hour, Zoom, office hour. That's perfectly fine. One great way to get students to show up to your office hours or encourage them to show up is, every Monday afternoon, 15-30 minutes before your office hour, make an announcement in your course that, at 2 o'clock, I'll be on Zoom. Here's the link in case you need it. And that is, a great way to get them to show up. It's also a good way to document that you're doing RSI in your course.
Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have videos, that doesn't mean that you can't use them. You still can, because there are other ways that you can show RSI in your courses. And so again, it's saying that, oh no, now you can't use any videos at all. You still can if it's relevant and it helps the students learning in your course. All right, so this here, I'm going to share the link in the chat as well to the both of the rubrics that are mentioned there. So everyone has gone through that has gone through DE certification here at City College has learned about regular and effective contact in online classes. Our certification is based on the California Virtual Campus Online Education Initiative, their course design rubric, which is used to help us to design our courses at a quality standard that supports online student success. And so in this rubric, it covers information about presenting our content, but it also has sections on interaction, instructor-initiated, student-initiated, student-to-student interaction. It also talks about assessment, effective assessment, providing guidance and feedback for students. Additionally, our accreditor ACCJC also created a quality continuum rubric for distance education. And so this is a resource to help us in our sort of improvement process to increase our understanding and quality of RSI in our DE courses. And so again, these would be two really good resources for you and your department to have a discussion about. I do want to mention that this was a pilot rubric in fall 2024, and as part of our sort of review, we were part of the initial institutions that went through this process. And so moving forward, this is now going to be part of sort of an accreditation review and will be used, I believe, just starting this year then. And so, yes, these two items here we can refer to when we're thinking about quality online courses, about RSI, and ensuring that our courses are designed with engagement and connecting with our students.
And, just a note about the accreditation process, it's, it could be a little bit different for different, members of the visiting team. They might be looking for something, or their methods might be a little bit different. But, in general, what I have found is that they are reviewing online courses. They're trying to check off the box as fast as possible. They are trying to look to see, does this shell that I'm reviewing, does it have RSI? Does it have adequate RSI or not? Our, standards, our RSI guidelines that our academic senate have approved say that the courses have to have 2 instances of RSI per week if it's an 18-week course. So, probably the first thing that they're going to be doing is they're going to look at your announcements. Okay. If you have regular weekly announcements that have, that address the content, that are, talking about, the students' work, things that it's pretty obvious that you are making in real time. Okay. So not something that you could have uploaded and set to, go off prior to the semester started, but that you're actually in the course, you're engaged with the students, what they're doing, and you're doing it on a regular basis, then they're going to say, okay, yes, there's one instance. Then they're going to look at discussions. Okay, so they're going to open a couple of discussions and they're going to look and see, is the instructor engaged in the discussion, not answering every single student who posts, obviously that's unreasonable, but do they have a presence there? So when the students are in the discussions, they can see that their teacher is in there communicating with them and is active, is actually present. And if they see that, you know, and again, there's no exact percentage or threshold or anything, but you know, do you have a presence in there? Then yes, that's another one. You know, are you doing your office hours every week? Are you, do you have, you know, an office hour where you're available for students? Okay, yes, there's another one. And then after that, then they're going to go for the things that are harder to see. They're going to look in this grade, speed grader, and they're going to pick a few assignments and see, you know, do you have substantive feedback for the students, not just saying good job, you know, great work, and that's it, but are you actually responding to them? And, you know, obviously we can't do that for every single assignment that we assign, but, you know, does it seem like for at least once a week, you're doing 2 instances of those 2 things? And then if they see that, check off, okay, this course is good, and then they go to the next one.
This is another infographic that I came across that I felt provided the necessary information for us in a easy to understand format. And so on the left-hand side, you know, you have the short snippets of RSI, which we reviewed. And it also is included in the RSI policy handout that was shared. The graphic, though, shows the 4 sort of substantive interactions activities that were where we include at least 2. And so around each of these interactions, there are ideas that fall under that criteria. And so remember, these are all ideas that, and these aren't the only ways that RSI may be implemented in your courses. And so again, just referencing this and maybe, okay, yeah, this is good, but I could modify it for my class by doing this. And so again, just another resource for you to have. All right. In the next couple of slides, we're going to provide some ideas and strategies that you can use in your courses, and maybe these can help to, you know, spark additional ideas that you have that meet your teaching style and also your objectives in your course. And now remember, we may already be doing these things, but how can we increase or add to or vary our interactions? The first one here is, refers to announcement. You know, a lot of us use announcements. Yes, we can highlight upcoming deadlines, but giving it more substance. So maybe we use it to explain or preview, summarize, or clarify content that we notice students were struggling with from the past week. We may want to identify, again, any sticky points or any patterns that we noticed from any of the students' submissions. We could include information that connects or extends from the previous week's topics with the upcoming week's topics. Maybe adding, relevant news or additional resources that help students to understand the topic. So again, just not listing the deadlines. Here's what's, here's the topics for this week, complete these 3 assignments, but adding some additional information in there. And in Canvas, we can allow students to respond and add comments as well to our announcements. And so maybe it's, having students also share information that they found relevant or asking questions for clarification. Instructor presence, we want to establish a consistent and an active presence early on. And so make your plan for interaction clear to students. Included in your discussion instructions or syllabus, how and when you will be participating. For example, in discussions, will you be responding to all students, or will you be more of a guide, responding here and there? Or will you only be highlighting certain posts maybe after students have already posted all of their responses? Will you be summarizing the discussion in later on in an announcement and whatnot? Whatever it is, just make sure that you provide this information and outline it to the students so they know when to expect your feedback and your presence. And so set the tone and let students know that you're there to support them, and just do this early on in your course so that students become familiar with that. Oops. All right, so gathering student feedback throughout the duration of your course. Again, you could use non-graded quizzes, use these for checks for understandings to gather student feedback, maybe after the first assignment or after a big project at the end of your module. How did things go? Are there any topics that you still need clarification on as we move to the next module or the next topic? Use the feedback to help to adjust your interaction with students. And again, it could be connecting content or clarifying topics or providing additional information. Monitoring student progress. So, keeping your upgrade, your grade book as updated as possible. This helps students to also monitor their learning progress and helps you to see who may need a nudge or who may need, some additional help. And you can also use it to provide positive comments like, great, you're doing great, you're keeping up with the activities in this course, and you're making great connections with the content. It also allows, use SpeedGrader to give timely and personalized feedback. So providing guidance or resources that students can use to understand where they are doing well and where they could improve. Again, information to extend their learning, to help make connections. If you're seeing a pattern, maybe you could post these resources or this information as an announcement so that all students can benefit from the guidance and the resources that you're sharing. You can also look at the analytics in your course to help monitor student engagement, checking in on students to make sure that they don't fall too far behind and that they stay on track. Canvas Studio does allow you to embed questions in your videos to make them more interactive and engaging. Studio would be great for, let's say, review or introduction to topics. Because in these videos, students are able to rewatch and respond to questions in unlimited amount of time. And so I would recommend using Studio for low stakes or either practice assessments only, and not necessarily for larger assessment sort of quizzes or anything like that. The other thing about Studio, it does also provide captions for your videos, where you can go back and edit for accuracy, but it will automatically generate those captions for your videos. Sally, you want to take this one, or was it me?
Sure. So we're going to show you some examples of some communication plans or communication policies that you can add to your syllabus. You could put it in if you have like a week 0 or before the semester begins module, you can put it there as a page. And really, what you want to think about is letting the students know how you are going to communicate with them, how often, what are the ways that you're going to communicate with them, And then also letting them know how and what ways it's going to be best for them to communicate with you. So there are, a couple examples here that I had ChatGPT generate. And I don't want to dwell on them too much, but basically there's some, a couple different examples with some different tones. The first one is very, to the point, here's what it is. Here's when you can communicate with me. I will respond to you, your emails and messages within 24 hours. These are my office hours. I'll be giving you feedback on your assignments. And then the second one here, it's a little bit friendlier, so just to give you some examples here that you can take them, edit them. The good thing about putting this type of communication plan in your syllabus, in your course, is I like doing something like this because it holds me accountable. So if I promise students that I will grade their work within a week, I try my best to do that. I don't always meet that goal, but if I'm running late, if I know I'm going to be more than a couple days late, then I send them an announcement, letting them know what's going on and what my plan is. Yeah, and then, again, this helps me to kind of stay on track and also is good to communicate with students. And, this is something that, the accreditors are kind of, looking for something like this. It's not necessarily going to be, oh, just because you have it in your syllabus, you're automatically doing it. They are going to look for evidence, but this is a good, kind of stepstone to get to that evidence.
All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to break you up into small groups. And in your small groups, you'll share a communication tip or a practice that you already implement or you may want to implement in your course. And after everyone in your group has shared, you're going to come up with one tip or practice. And so once we return to the main room, then each group will share their tip then. Are there any questions before we send you to your rooms?
Yeah, there's lots of stuff going on in the chat over here. While you're in your breakout rooms, I'm going to go over this, and then when we get back, we'll report out. You can share what you talked about in with your your colleagues in your breakout room, and we'll pick up any questions that haven't been answered as well. Try our best. How much time? 10 minutes?
Yeah, we'll give you 10 minutes for this activity. And again, in your groups, share your communication tip or practice, and then as a group, come up with one that we'll share back. All right.
Okay, and launching now.
All right, welcome back, everyone.
And kind of short, kind of short.
Okay. Oh, more time. Oh no. Yeah, I think we cut the time a little bit short. But yeah, but that's okay because we have some time for a discussion here. So if you came up with something, something that you said, or you're thinking of, or someone in your group thought of, that you want to share, go ahead and type it in the chat, and then we'll give you a few minutes for that. And then as you are doing that, I spotted a couple of questions from the chat that I wanted to talk about. So someone, I think Sean, was asking about an issue with Canvas Studio accessibility. Yeah, we're not aware of anything like that. Canvas Studio does produce really good captions, and it's real easy to edit the captions. So, in terms of that kind of accessibility, it might even be, better than a Zoom video or YouTube video. And then the other one was someone asked about within the grade book messaging, messaging students who scored, above a certain, score or below a certain score, or who haven't submitted, their work, something like that. So those messages are going to be captured within the Canvas inbox. So again, it depends on the permissions that the accreditors have. But for this previous round, they, I think I mentioned this in the chat earlier, but they did not see, they were not able to see any of the inbox messages that we sent. And, of course, they can't get into your email either. But the person who was the lead on checking our DE courses for RSI, she said that she assumes that every instructor does that. Every instructor is emailing, every instructor is sending messages through the inbox. And so she automatically just, checked off one instance of RSI per course. So essentially, she was only really looking for one other instance of RSI. But yeah, all of those kind of messages are kind of lumped together, whether you're doing it as email or, in the inbox, within the grader, the grade book, those all kind of count as one category. And then there was also some discussion about office hours. And students don't show up to office hours. That's great if you give them extra credit for attending office hours. But again, it doesn't matter if you have no students that show up, or half your class shows up, or anything like that. If you have an office hour, you're regularly having it, one time a week, for example, and you're opening a Zoom room and you're available for students, that counts as an instance of RSI in your class. And let's see what else we have. So announcements with student comments available. Yes, you can turn on the comments for announcements, so students can ask questions and can interact with each other there. Weekly summary of achieved outcomes, pitfalls, accomplishments, and successes. This is a great, really easy thing to do. Schedule once a week, you make an announcement. You can even make a little video of yourself talking about it. Or, you just, on a regular basis, you're just saying, this is what we did last week. This is how, you all did. These are some problems that you had. Next week, we're going to be looking at these assignments, and really like talking about the content. So again, thinking about, is it a video that you could have produced before the semester even started? You don't know the students, the course is not going on. It's about the content of your class, but it's something that's not interactive with the students, engaging with the students. That is not RSI. But if it's something that is directly engaging with what they're doing, what the class is doing, so that it's obvious that you are there, reading their work, engaging with their work, and talking to them about it, about the content and how they did, clearly that is RSI. Creating a more robust communication plan. I really encourage you to just create a communication plan. Think about, what is possible for you. One thing is, letting students know if you're not available on weekends to answer emails or to do grading, let them know that, and then they won't be nervous that you're not answering their emails. It's a really good practice. Yeah, you're definitely not expected to answer every student in the discussion. That's just not reasonable. What you could do instead is, every few responses, you can put a little comment. You can ask a question, a more leading question. What do you think about this? I really liked what you said here. This is a great insight. This connects to the reading that we did this week. What do you think about this? Yeah, so for office hours an office hour to count as for RSI, it does need to be scheduled, does need to be clear to students, and it does need to be predictable. So, every Wednesday at, 12 to 1 o'clock or whatever, something like that. Let's see. Yeah, so, for synchronous meetings, that is the very definition of RSI. You are connecting with students, you're interacting with them. So anyone who's teaching a synchronous course, and the meetings are scheduled regularly, that is RSI for sure. Auto messaging. Monique, I don't know exactly what that means. You mean like setting up the messages prior to the semester, having them preloaded and scheduled to deploy at a certain time? Is that what you mean?
Yes, but it sends I'm actually talking about when you do the message, you actually send a copy of it to their email. You can actually say send, and it'll send a message so that they are reminded they need to come to the class and complete all their stuff on modules, but it goes to each individual student.
Oh, yeah. So, so again, remember the interactions are, need to be substantive, right? So just, reminder, go to class right now at 9 o'clock or whatever. That, that's not substantive. It is something that is talking about the content of the course, reminding them about the content of the course. It's something that is kind of, meaty and engaging. Then that's going to lead more into, yeah, that RSI material. Yeah, so okay, so everyone knows Sue and I have been asked to do a training for our deans to make sure that they're all on the same page. They really truly understand what RSI is. They understand what they should be looking for. And so we're very much looking forward to that. Hopefully, that's going to smooth out some of these issues. We don't really have control over that, but, in terms of what the evaluation form is asking, that is determined by the contract. There's certain things that we don't have control of over in that area. And then, what our goal is just trying to make sure that that all of the instructional deans really understand this, and hopefully that will make things more fair across the board.
Sally,
Yes.
this is Mark Forstier.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? Everybody, just for credit, Sally and Sheila Martin did my online training quite a few years ago. So I still remember my homework. One of the things that the deans sometimes will say, it kind of goes in contradicting to what you had just said a little while ago, which is emails. And that is, there's this tendency to use the vernacular. An email is a correspondence course. And again, I don't use it that way. First of all, I think I have like 4 or 5 different ways I interact with students. Okay, so not just emails, but in my I send out a Monday email and say, hey, this is what you guys are doing this week and stuff. And by the way, I drop in then something that may be new that was not part of my Canvas shell that says, hey, check this out, kind of thing, whatever. Okay, and then I do a kind of a repeat on Friday a bit and stuff like that. So because I like students using emails. Because in the business world, which is what I'm trying to teach them, they're not using Canvas. They're going to be using emails most of the time. And so I'm trying to get that skill set there. But sometimes the dean just lumps it all together. And then the dean says, well, no, emails is a correspondence, and the correspondence. And I'm like, well, okay. But then they turn around and they say, well, announcements aren't. And I go, well, hold on. It's the delivery mechanism.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's supposed to be fresh, in which it is. The way I do it, it's fresh. Okay. But the format, whether it came from Canvas Canvas message, email. And I appreciate you telling me that the visiting committee will give us the benefit of the doubt, because I
Yeah,
didn't know how else I do it.
so this previous visiting committee, we don't necessarily know, that
Okay.
is not their standard practice, but
Okay.
that's what this past person did. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a rule going forward. But it
Okay.
makes sense. It makes sense, right? Because I could see other people doing that in the future. So yeah. Yes, I agree with you. And definitely emailing with students is a common interaction. That is an interaction. Unfortunately, though, when your dean can't see it, maybe they don't like that, right? They want to be able to see something. So, again, Sue and I are going to hopefully, clarify some of these things for them, and yeah.
Yeah. And I keep it, by the way, it's just on, and I don't want to monopolize the time, and I keep a separate folder for each class, and I keep the emails twice a week for the entire semester. I'm not worried about the justifications. Like, you can't see them, let me show you that, in addition to all the other things that we do as teachers. And so part of me making this comment is for people to say, hey, look, document, right? Trust, verify, okay, do your kind of thing, whatever. And I appreciate what you use the word fresh. That's a really good way to describe it. Thanks, Sally.
Okay. Yeah, and then I'm seeing one here. Yeah, so making a tutorial video about your class before it starts. No, it's not RSI, but of course you should do that. That's content. That's the content of the course. Now, making a video within the course that addresses that, making the video interactive. Now we're getting closer. Now we're on the RSI side.
Sally, I do have a question.
Yes.
Are we on the questions? I'm sorry.
Yes, we are. I'm just laughing at what Sean put here. All caps required.
So
I do not have
most of-
I do not have the ability to require them to do anything. Just everyone knows that. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Rio.
no worries. Most of us evaluate part-timers, right? So I'm curious, like, is there some kind of sheet that we can, I mean, I know you guys have all the graphics that are in here, but is there, and maybe I missed this, is there some kind of point system? Because I know there's kind of, I mean, we don't want people to do the minimum, but if we're evaluating, we want to have some kind of, guideline for what that looks for. And of course, I think all of us as part-timers go, yeah, minimum is okay, but that's not where we're headed. But evaluation is a different thing. And so do you have any input on that?
Yeah, so that is a great idea. We're at Fresno City College, we are held to the standard of the document, the RSI policy that the Academic Senate produced. So, certainly our negotiated evaluation form does not align with that. It's very old. I believe it's at least 10 years old. But I think it will be pretty easy for us to create something, that's based on the RSI policy. Now, is that okay with the contract? If we're using something that's not, a union negotiated form to evaluate adjuncts, or any of our peers, I'm not sure if that, I'm not sure about that. You probably all know that we're in the middle of negotiations right now, so things could be changing. Reedley also had a core inquiry on RSI this past round. And so, there could very well be the opportunity for us to create something that better aligns with the standards. That's what I'm hoping. But, we're kind of hamstrung in that way.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I should have thought about the
It's not a good
contract.
answer.
Yeah. No, I should have thought about the contract. I didn't. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, but of course, sharing that policy widely you know, talking about it in your department meetings. You know, it's sometimes it's a little intimidating because it does have some technical technical definitions. There are a ton of footnotes. If you're looking, you know, at it digitally, there's, you know, tons of great resources there that are embedded. That is probably, I would definitely recommend doing that, you know, sharing that, you know, just kind of getting the word out as much as possible about that and having a discussion about that. Because, you know, as, you know, even like this discussion right here is even showing that, you know, the way that you are going to implement RSI in your class, it is going to be, you know, different for different disciplines. What makes sense in an English class is just, you know, is not going to be the same as a CIT class. And so, you know, having those discussions within your department, you know, discipline experts is probably going to be your best bet. And, you know, if you, of course, if you have need any clarification on anything, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to Sue and me. We could even come to a department meeting to talk about it if that's something that you think would be valuable. We're available for that, for sure.
Thanks, Sally.
Oh, yeah, hybrid courses. So a couple of things about hybrid courses. One one thing is that the portion of the hybrid course that is online asynchronous is held to the same standards as a fully did I say synchronous? I mean asynchronous, fully asynchronous, you know, online class. So if you know, have a 4-unit class, 50-50, you know, face-to-face and asynchronous online, then just, you know, cut whatever the requirement is in half for that, if that makes sense. At the same time, when at least this past round, when the accreditors came, they only looked at fully online, fully asynchronous courses. So that no one was looking at hybrids, no one was looking at synchronous courses. It was all just fully online asynchronous. Yeah, hopefully that answers that. Yes, so the interactions should increase as appropriate, blah, 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 blah. What that means is that, you know, I believe the standard, so probably right above that, the standard says something like, this is what is appropriate for I don't even know if it says the units, for an 18-week course, 2 instances of RSI, 2 different types of RSI per week, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. If it's a 9-week class, then you just multiply that by 2. If it's a 6-week class, then, you know, do the math there, that type of thing. So because it's a condensed class, then you need to have more interactions. But let's, you know, in a reasonable way. So, you know, for very, very condensed classes, I guess there's 4-week summer school classes. I'm not sure. You know, I do not believe that anyone would be expected to do, you know, an outrageous number of, like, you know, 6 or 8 instances per week. That's a little, you know, unreasonable. Yeah, so for a 9-week, 1.5 unit course, I would say 2 per week, right? Because it's condensed, it's from 18 weeks, it's condensed to 9. And then instead of 3 units, it's 1.5. So I don't know. I'm an English teacher, not a math teacher, so I might be wrong on that. You know, yeah, technically, 4, 5-unit courses would require a little more per week, but it's important not to get too bogged down on the specific details. The really important thing is, thinking about, from a couple different points of view. First and foremost, from the student's point of view, are you showing your presence? Are the students aware that you are engaged, that you're there, that they have the opportunity to interact with you, that you're initiating interaction with them on a regular basis? Okay, and it's clear, it's documented, it's clear in your syllabus, it's clear from your announcements. Everybody realizes that. And then another, looking at it from the accreditation or an evaluator point of view, is it clear? Do you have documented instances of it in your class that an evaluator or an accreditor can look and say, yes, you're doing that. Yes, you're doing that. So, balancing those two things without actually, I need to do 3.75 times of RSI, don't get that much into the weeds.
Sally, I know we're at
Yes.
closing time here,
Yeah.
but we can definitely stay on for some extra time to answer any additional questions. For specific questions, I would highly recommend you reach out to Sally and I, and we can provide you some more personalized feedback as well.
And we're having, and Susie is doing a great job of saving the questions in the chat.
Yes.
That's what she said that she was going to do. So one of our goals is to, combine this session plus our face-to-face session that we did on Wednesday, make kind of like an FAQ document, which we plan to send out to everyone, all the participants.
And we're here to support you and help you along with this requirement and regulations and all of that. And so again, just feel free to reach out to either one of us as we go through this. But yes, for those that need to move on to another event or activity, committee meeting or whatnot, feel free to leave. But those that do have additional questions, we can hang around for a little bit here.
Yeah. Sue, could you put the PowerPoint in? I know you did it. I think
Which one?
did it earlier. I'm not sure.
Oh, the document or the?
Yeah, the PowerPoint.
Oh, oops.
Yeah, and then I know I've said this to a couple of people, so forgive me, but the recording that is going on right now, Susie will take the recording and she'll put it up on the Fresno City College Professional Development YouTube channel in about a week. And then she will, provided we give it to her, she will put the PowerPoint in that as well. But yeah, if you would like it, separately, again, just email us for any of the documents.
Thank you very much. This was wonderful.
Thank you.